season with the league. Also at today's press conference, the Americans' captains were announced. There, Steve Jaques and defenseman Greg Spenrath, a left winger. Spenrath says he likes the reputation he's gotten as a fighter on the hockey team and says it doesn't hurt his game.
I stepped into the role of being a enforcer and sort of got a reputation that I will fight. I won't back down to anybody. And if there's trouble on the ice, I'll be there to help out. It excites me, actually, and gets me right into the game. It also settles everyone else down on the ice and gets everyone playing their own game.
The players and coach say they played well against the Spokane Chiefs over the weekend and say Spokane may become a big rivalry.
They got a really intense team, same as us, so they're always going to be good, and we're going to be good this year too, so it should turn into a good rivalry.
I certainly think Spokane and ourselves is going to be just a huge rivalry. I think the two teams, first of all, play the same style. We're very intense, very aggressive teams. And I think already in our preseason games, the games that we had were much more intense than some of the other games. So I think Spokane is a natural rival, but I also think we're going to have some great rivalries with Seattle and Portland. I think that the people in Tri-Cities can look forward to and can get excited about playing those big cities and having a chance, you know, to beat them. And
Coach John Olver says the club is ready to start playing for real and on regulation-sized rinks after holding most workouts at the small ice rink in Walla Walla.
An extra night in Castlegar and practice Sunday, and really accomplished a lot. And I know we were talking earlier today, and we said, gee, we just need to get more of that. We just aren't preparing ourselves enough on our specialty teams and areas like that by practicing on the small ice sheet. So we're going into Spokane 2 days early, and we're going to get 2 full practices as Thursday and Friday before we play Saturday against Spokane.
Defenseman Steve Jaques and left winger Greg Spenrath will serve as captains of the Americans this season. Spenrath in particular loves to play physical hockey, which means he'll fight if he has to.
Last year I stepped into the role of being a enforcer and sort of got a reputation that I will fight. I won't back down to anybody. And if there's trouble on the ice, I'll be there to help out.
A lot of fights in those games, by the way, over the weekend. The Americans pulled off another trade today. They acquired defenseman Trent Kachur from the Regina Pats for future considerations. Tickets still available for Saturday night's game in Spokane. Call the team office for information.
Very pleased with our goaltending. I think Frank Furlan and Olaf Kolzig together have played very well. Frank, even though he's a 20-year-old and a proven goaltender in college hockey, hadn't played at this level, and I was very optimistic he would do well, but of course we still had to see it happen, and he's played well, and Olaf Kolzig's played very well too. So their goaltending, I think, is going to be one of the keys to our hockey team, and we've had.
The team also announced the co-captains for this year. They are left winger Greg Spenrath on the left and defenseman Steve Jaques. There's a reason why Spenrath was chosen as one of this year's co-captains.
Last year I stepped into the role of being a enforcer and sort of got a reputation that I will fight. I won't back down to anybody. And if there's trouble on the ice, I'll be there to help out.
Do that a lot this year. The Americans open the regular season Saturday in Spokane.
Having a chalk talk with the public, trying to explain the finer points of hockey to Columbia Basin residents. Topics of discussion included icing, slashing, spearing, blue lines, and neutral zones. Word has it that the Americans have not lost a fight in the preseason. They didn't talk much about that. Confidential information has reached this sports person that the Americans are a much finer hockey team than the Runts in Spokane, despite what head coaches around the WHL currently think. An informative night at Kennewick High School tonight. Go Americans.
Saturday night. Today at a press conference, head coach John Olver said his team has a long ways to go.
We're just going to look for a little bit of improvement here every day. We know we've got a ways to go. Our players realize that, and we're working hard here this coming week preparing for next weekend.
Olver adds he's still looking for the right combination here in the early part of the season.
Well, we're far from set. I was pleased with some of our players' play and not so pleased with others, and that generally happens throughout the course of the year. Our lines are something that change as we go along. The lines that play well, we keep together. The other lines that aren't going so well, we try to find new combinations that'll work better.
And
and to be honest, I think everybody's a little tired after the long road swing. And you know, we've talked, and it's certainly going to be nice to get into our home barn here, play some home games, and feel a lot more part of the Tri-Cities area.
Also this evening, the Americans announced a trade bringing Shane Kohl to the Americans from the Prince Albert Raiders. Kohl is a rugged blue liner that's expected to bring some strength to the struggling Tri-Cities team.
Yeah, well, I came to here. I didn't know what to expect because I've never been down here before, but I came down. John talked to me on the phone a few times. He said to come down here and give her a shot, so I came down here and I seen everything, and everything looks good from this point on.
If you want to get tickets for Sunday night's game, you better get them fast. Look at that Coliseum. Only 700 to 800 tickets are left.
For them to put in. Anyway, you know what I mean. The ice wasn't completely cured. Green, the experts call it. There was a practice, though. Prior to lacing their skates, the team announced a new acquisition, Shane Kohl from the Prince Albert Raiders. The talk of the night wasn't the 5-12 record. It was the great feeling of finally being home, and what a home.
Well, they're just absolutely ecstatic. I think we're looking forward more to this practice than we have to some of our road games here the last while. The guys are down 2 hours early. I can't believe it. They're really anxious to get at it, get out here, and I know we're going to have a real spirited practice out here tonight.
This building has a lot of amenities that you just don't find in buildings that are comparable in size. It's a great building. The city is really lucky to have this building.
I've worked with the Detroit Red Wings and teams in the American League, and they're not anywhere near as nice. This is a National Hockey League arena with a Western Hockey League team in it.
Oh, definitely, it sure is nice. I think the ice right now isn't what it's going to be tomorrow night, but I think once you know, we get going and get in this building, it's going to be something else, that's for sure.
Yeah, last night there were 800 tickets left for the home opener this Sunday against Seattle, a laser light show, singing, a $100,000 puck shoot, and a hockey game are scheduled, and get there early.
It was an historic night last night of sorts as the team worked out for the first time in their home building. It's been a long time coming as the Americans were forced to play their first 17 games on the road while the Coliseum was built. The guys are very happy to be home.
Guys are really looking forward to playing at home. I think it doesn't even feel like the season started for some of us because, you know, the biggest part of the year is, you know, the home opener and getting to see the fans and everything. So I think as far as morale and that, everyone's, you know, ready to go. Everything's high.
Home ice advantage will mean a lot to us. Playing at home, 6,000 fans. First game is going to be really big, and the boys will all be pumped up. Oh, it's no doubt. You feel that extra pressure. That's for sure. It's going to be a sellout crowd. You know, everyone's going to see how the team is and everything, and you really want to perform your best.
The Americans picked up just 5 wins on that grueling road trip, but Coach John Olver says it toughened his guys up mentally. He hopes they can keep that toughness on the home ice.
I hope we don't get too soft now just because we're at home all the time. We've still got to play very hard. It's not going to be easy. We've got some very good teams in our division. Portland, Victoria, Spokane, Seattle, Kamloops, all very strong teams, and we're going to have to play very well every night to win.
A big extravaganza plan, not just hockey on Sunday night. Gates will open at 4:30. They've got a singers, light show.
Great.
If you're into it, it's going to be fun.
As the Tri-City Americans made their grand entrance into their new home, the hometown crowd went into a frenzy. They'd all just stepped into a place unlike anything the Tri-Cities has known before. 6,004 people in the seats and plenty of razzle-dazzle to keep pumping them up.
I think it's lovely. It's grand. I think it's a superior thing for the Tri-Cities. They, especially now, I think we need something like this. Keep us all together.
It just looks wonderful, and I think the people look like they're supporting it.
It's great. It's an asset to the community.
Canadian developer Ron Dixon was introduced as the Tri-Cities Man of the Year. It's his $10 million gamble that people will keep coming back, not only for hockey, but for all sorts of entertainment. Richland Mayor John Poyner caught the feeling of the crowd.
Thank you. Tri-Cities, we have arrived.
It was an electric night for the Tri-Cities, the first of a new era in sports and entertainment. For Tri-Citians, this Coliseum means a lot more than hockey. It's a feeling that something really good is happening here. Of course, the best part of the night was the hockey game. Jim Hall will have the highlights a little later. The Coliseum is planning its grand opening bash December 6th.
Game, you know, after watching the Americans miss scoring on a 3-on-none break, you knew it wasn't to be tonight at the Coliseum. And the Americans and the Wheat Kings say hello and welcome to the Tri-Cities to each other. A lot of fisticuffs in this game tonight. Brandon scores first on this pretty move in deke by center Chris Robertson, past goalie Frank Furlan. It's 1-0 Brandon. Then everyone's favorite Stu Barnes breaks out of the penalty box and scores past Trevor Kidd. It's a tie score. Then here's that 3-on-none break. Steve Jaques doesn't drop back to pass. He takes it himself, and ooh, a nice save by Kidd. That's why he's one of the best goalies in this league. This was a game that saw the Americans, showed a lot of Americans' weakness on defense. And afterwards, John Olver said it really embarrassed him, and they'd come back the next time they play. The Wheat Kings win this game 6-3 over 4,000 people in the Coliseum. Other WHL scores: Swift Current 7, Medicine Hat 6 in overtime, and Kamloops beat Regina 7-3.
Game
I wish I wouldn't have missed last
Yeah, if you were at the game last night, you missed a dandy of a game for one and a huge fight for another. We'll get to that right now. An absolute melee in the Coliseum is causing a lot of talk around the Tri-Cities today. It happened last night between the Americans and the Regina Pats. More importantly, the Americans won the game 5-4 in a thriller. Over 5,100 fans had no idea what they were in for last night in an exciting night in the Coliseum. First period, 5 minutes in, Stu Barnes puts the Americans on the board, slapping the biscuit in the basket. 1-0 Americans. 8 minutes later, though, the Pats would tie it up. Kevin Haller shoots, Mike Sillinger there for the rebound. It's 1-all. Gary Dickey gave the Pats the lead at 2-1 on the breakaway. He beats Frank Furlan right there. It was 2-1 Pats after one period. Third period, the Pats made it 3-1. Sillinger with his second goal of the night. Things did not look good for the Americans at this point. The Americans cut it to 3-2 before the Pats answered again. Gary Dickey on a shorthanded goal, beating Furlan on the stick side. 4-2 Pats, but not for long. Stu Barnes loose in front. The Americans with his second goal of the night. That cut the lead to 4-3. Barnes then tied it up. He gets loose in front again. Tie it up at 4 as he gets the garbage goal right there. Then, you're not going to believe this, but with 6 seconds to go in the contest, Stu Barnes gets loose on the breakaway. He hits Sean Lebrun for the game winner as the Coliseum erupts. It's 5-4 Americans. With 2 seconds to go, the fights broke out. Jeff Sebastian jumped Steve McNutt. This is the result. That's Rob Krauss and Dave Duquette. I think Krauss gets the best of that one. How about Steve Jaques and Jeff Sebastian? Now, keep your eye. Look at this. Jaques is grabbing for his contact lens. Would you believe the guy said, "Hey, Steve, your contact lens, you better get it." Anyway, we talked to Americans coach John Olver about last night's fight.
When I looked up and saw number 25, Sebastian, jump McNutt, who I probably might be the only fight he'll be in all year, before the puck even hit the ice, he was on top of him. And, you know, basically our guys went in to protect him, and that's their job. And, I mean, we don't want to start those things, but if somebody's going to do it, we're certainly not going to tolerate, and we're going to do everything we can to finish them.
And that's exactly what happened. The Americans host Seattle Wednesday in the Coliseum. The Seattle
come from behind victory. The melee broke out with just 6 seconds left in the period after the Americans had gone ahead 5-4. A handful of fights between the two clubs started, and it was nearly a half hour before the final 2 seconds of the game could be played. Americans coach John Olver says Regina was clearly at fault.
Totally uncalled for. I blame, in this case, and I can't always say this, but in that game against Regina, I blame totally their hockey team for what happened. A guy jumped one of our players before the puck even hit the ice on the faceoff. So we basically defended ourselves, and certainly when they started it, we'd like to think we finished it, but it was totally uncalled for. And I was in touch with the league office today about it, letting them know that I think that Regina, what they did, it should be dealt with at the league level.
The Fighting marked a brilliant comeback by the Americans. They scored 3 goals in the final 2.5 minutes to nip the Pats by 1. Stu Barnes had a hand in 4 of the 5 goals scored by the Tri-Cities. He scored 3 himself and assisted Sean Lebrun with a game winner with just 6 seconds left in the contest. The win snaps a 3-game American losing streak and will do wonders for the morale of the club.
Coming back the way we did has to be a tremendous boost to our team, and I'm really optimistic that we're going to carry that over into the game Wednesday and start the game like we finished off on Sunday.
The Americans look forward to 3 straight games on their home ice beginning Wednesday night with the Seattle Thunderbirds.
Officials are also talking with the Western Hockey League about its regulations on fighting on the ice. Club representatives say fighting is just part of the game. Shelley Swanke reports.
Those who have been around hockey for years say Sunday night's fight is not normal, but it's not the worst fight that they've ever seen. Assistant General Manager for the Coliseum, Kevin Gallant, says while they don't condone the fight, Sunday's line brawl was minor compared with some he's seen.
Fighting is an accepted part of the game of hockey. I believe a lot of fans like to see the one-on-one fights. I don't think they like to see the line brawls that occurred the other day. But I think when you see a fight, that means they're not going to use their stick, which is what a player will tell you he likes the most. There are going to be fights, and I think that people we'd be lying to them if we told them that we're not going to have an incident like this again. We just hope it doesn't happen again.
Gallant says the league disciplines itself. He says they have investigated Sunday's fight, and at least one player from the Regina team has been disciplined. He says there's a lot of reasons why players break into fights, but mostly he says they would rather use their fists than sticks.
I think sometimes players just drop their gloves because it's safer to fight than to use their stick as a sword. And it's a proven fact. If you take fighting out of this game by the sticks, people bring the sticks up closer to your head, your eye.
Gallant admits that people need to become educated that fighting and hockey go together, and he says there shouldn't be any concern on the part of city officials that fans will continue any of the fights outside.
I've been in the business for 10 years, and I've never ever seen hockey fights on the ice ever stem and carry to the fans, where they would take it out of the building and then get into a fight themselves. And I think a lot of the fans kind of enjoyed it because they got up, they got to vent their frustrations and emotions. They left the building, and certainly I don't think it leads to anything else. But it's certainly not premeditated or anything else like that. It's all totally emotions about young men. I mean, people don't understand young men. They're away from home. They've got thousands of pressures. They've got, NHL scouts watching, the whole bit. And the National Hockey League's accepted fighting, and I think that fighting will one day come to an end when the NHL decides it doesn't want fighting, but I don't foresee that happening.
The first period is a wonderful
Did you like
game.
it?
Good
Good
game.
fight?
Right as we walked in, there was a brawl, though. That was great.
Okay.
The music comes on, just like the Gladiators. The music comes on, and these guys are circling each other. They know.
Much lighter tone tonight. The CBC Hawks.
And it's been part of hockey for a while.
Right, that might be a conjecture worth listening to, I think. But the Tri-City Americans are now riding a 2-game win streak and are very close to 4th place in the Western Division after their 3-2 win over the current 4th place holder, Seattle, tonight in the Coliseum. First period, no score. Greg Spenrath and Dean Hall mix it up and get the crowd into the game early. 13:27 of the first. Spenrath feeds Steve McNutt in front of the net, and he beats Danny Lorenz, and it's 1-0 Tri-Cities. 3 minutes later, the Americans do it again. McNutt will dig the puck off the boards and find Steve Jaques in front, who lights the lamp. After 1 period, the Mercs had a 2-0 lead. And Steve Kohl will take down the T-Birds' Kevin Malgunas. Ouch! Rob Krauss was later slapped to the 10-minute game misconduct for fighting. At 14:59 of the second, Seattle tied it. Victor Gervais hits the crossbar, and then the puck bounces away. He later gets it back, and it tied the game at 2 with that goal. But the Americans didn't waste any time taking back the lead. 54 seconds later, just acquired today, Frank Melone deflects the shot by Steve Jaques into the back of the net, the game winner. The Americans win it 3-2. The Mercs are next in action this Saturday when they host the Kamloops Blazers in a weekend doubleheader, 1-game.
Of a 2-game win streak. After another strong performance last night against Seattle, the Americans made it 3 of 4 over Seattle with a 3-2 win. The newest member of the Americans, number 16, Frankie Melone, made his presence felt in a hurry. First period, Greg Spenrath centers to Steve McNutt, who blasts it between the pipes. 1-0 Americans. They would build a 2-0 first period lead. Second period, Seattle got within 1. Power play, Tom Sprague blows it by Frank Furlan. 2-1 Americans. Some more fights in this contest. Rob Krauss and Robert Dumas going at it. I wouldn't want to fight Mr. Krauss. Seattle tied it at the 14:59 mark, Victor Gervais bangs home the loose puck in front. That tied it up at 2. But Frankie Melone got the game winner for the Americans. Steve Jaques will get the assist. The Americans win it 3-2. They go to 8-15 on the year and host Kamloops on Saturday.
A game, clean game, no fights last
Didn't make
night.
it. No fights whatsoever?
No, the Americans love the Coliseum. They've got a great record there.
The Tri-City Americans are definitely giving the fans their money's worth with another action-packed night at the Coliseum last night. The Americans lit up the nets in the second period for 3 goals and won a thriller in overtime 4-3. The KNDU fans in the stands, Catherine Meglish-Tate and David Tate enjoying the action in their matching shirts. Second period, no score. The Blazers' Phil Huber deflects Darwin McClellan's shot past Frank Furlan. The Blazers take a 1-0 lead. Just 23 seconds later, they extend their lead. David Chizowski bangs it home, his 15th goal of the year, 2-0 Kamloops. The Americans got within 1 6 minutes later. Greg Spenrath with a great athletic move. Stu Barnes and Steve Jaques get credit for the assist. It's 2-1 Kamloops. Then in a rare penalty shot, the fans love it, Stu Barnes scores after the Kamloops goalie threw his stick at him. The Americans celebrate with the game tied at 2. The guys in yellow and black scored 3 second-period goals. Sean Lebrun with the final one. Americans up 3-2 now, but just 15 seconds into the third period, the Blazers tied it up. Huber with the second goal of the night, tied at 3, and into overtime we go. In OT, Barnes-a-Rama and more. Stu Barnes with the game winner. The Americans win a thriller 4-3. They go to 6-1 on Sunday nights. The fans love it in the Coliseum as Barnes is mauled by his teammates. The Americans travel to Spokane on Wednesday.
Solid hockey of late, winning Friday night against Lethbridge and playing division-leading Portland to a 6-6 tie on Saturday. The Americans had to twice come from behind Saturday to get that tie. The Winterhawks led 3-0. The Americans tied it at 3. Portland then moved back out on top 5-3. But the Tri-Cities then rattled off 3 straight goals to take the lead. Rob Krauss's first goal of the season got the Americans even at 5-5. Krauss's dance equally as impressive as his goal. Later in the period, Greg Spenrath put the home team in front. Here comes Spenrath's goal. That put the Americans on top 6-5. Portland got a goal to tie it. The American season record is now 10-16 for the season. That's sports.